How's that?
Got it.
Recording in progress. Excellent. Okay. So, Sonali, thank you for being here today and agreeing to have a chat about the Unbundled project that you've been part of for a little while. And we're really keen to just find out what some of the participants have been thinking and feeling about some of the work that has gone into it over the last year. So first question was just, how did you get involved in the project in the first place?
So I was on the Unbundled legal services subsection for the CBA, and that's where I happened to meet Carrie Boyle, who then introduced me to the Family Innovation Lab and then also the Unbundling roster. And that's sort of where I found out everything about this project and some presentations that you had presented at Matt. And so that was my sort of onboarding to unbundling to this project. So
right, that was your introduction. Great.
Yeah.
Yes, I remember that was that presentation was some time ago, wasn't it, to one of the working groups? Yeah.
Right.
And so the project revolves around the idea of gathering ongoing client feedback. And the part of the purpose of the project was to try and understand what the experience was like with clients who have used unbundled services. So as a practitioner, like, what do you think the benefits are to you in your practice of regularly collecting ongoing client feedback?
So I think there's a couple of things that come out of feedback. So just to kind of go back a little bit, is that I actually didn't know that we could collect feedback from clients. And so this was the first time I actually started to think about clients in this sort of customer satisfaction survey kind of way.
Right.
And one of the things that I was seeing sort of being involved in like the advocacy around increased usage of unbundled services was just the lack of data we have from the public as to how unbundled services are being, like, A, are they being used, and B, what is the experience that people are having? Because not that it just seems like a lot of people were putting on their websites that we offer unbundled services, but what does that mean? Right. And so for me, I think I wanted to ensure, like, I wanted to provide unbundled legal services from a marketing perspective, but I also wanted to do it in a efficient and competent way. And the only way to find that out is if your clients feel like, yes, I truly understood what the unbundled retainer or letter of engagement with my lawyer is, and also the work that was being performed or on a discrete task or like within our partnership agreement was the work that they had signed up for, and their experience was in general a positive experience, right? And so how can I keep making that a better experience, and how can I also shift the gears from being a traditional full end-to-end provider of services to then transitioning to unbundled services. Right. Because at this point, I would say probably more than 50% of my work is unbundled. Yeah.
Okay, so that's the majority. So yeah, so it sounds like it's checking that alignment between the client's expectations of the service and what the realities of unbundled are, right?
Right.
Because, like you say, it's not a standardized type of thing necessarily out there, and so you want to make sure that your clients are getting what they expected of the service when they finish.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And so far, how have you been using any of the feedback that you've seen in your practice?
Yeah, so in terms of the feedback, I am hoping, so I think I mentioned this to you prior to our recording. So I think I want to incorporate some of the tools into my intake forms from the get-go, so that I can track the unbundled sort of experience like throughout the file in terms of my file management. But generally speaking, I've had a few clients who have reached out and have provided feedback. I think sometimes the issue is you send out the feedback link, but then people just get lazy or forget about it, or it's something they're, they're done with their family lawyer, they're done with the estate's part of things. So it's generally it's been pretty good. I'm trying to think of like a couple of examples recently. I think for clients there, one of the things that I noticed from the feedback was that oftentimes clients are given like option A and option B, but they don't recognize that there's an option C, especially in estate administration work I'm finding, where, you know, I don't have to do the whole probate file from like A to Z. Like the executor can come into my office and they can do all of the documents. Like it's a pretty standardized process for the most, but then just offering that, you know, 1 hour in increments or in parts of their application where they can be like, oh, I submitted everything, but everything got rejected. Can you look over this with me and point out to me what I've done wrong and help me like understand, you know, what is the registry saying to me here? Or what does the Supreme Court rule mean? And I think that's offered people that sort of peace of mind that it's not going to cost them a ton, because in those probate files, like people don't have money. A lot of the executors, you don't see the money until the probate process is completed, right? So there's that upfront cost that they have to incur. And I think that's scary for a lot of people. And just with the cost of living in this city and the number of estate administration files we're starting to see, because they're, you know, the baby boomers are starting to the sort of tail end. There's like a wealth transfer that's happening, but that doesn't mean that the receiving end of it or the executor, there's a lot of things that need to happen that require upfront payment. And so the accessing probate via an unbundled model has been, I think that's been where I've gotten the most positive feedback, because I'm not sure how many other lawyers are doing it that way, but I don't think there's a lot out there. So yeah,
that's interesting. That sounds like a good topic to expand on at some point. You know, how lawyers like yourself are actually using unbundled services to best fit the type of practice that they're doing, because I imagine, you know, it's going to be different, right, depending on the area of practice and what kind of law you're actually practicing, as to where it's going to fit best, right?
Right.
Yeah, interesting. And so operationally, how have you been actually asking clients for the feedback so far?
Right. So it's mostly just been with a follow-up email saying, hey, here's the reporting letter, here's the final bill, and then also, you know, please send some feedback as to your experience with unbundled services. So that's sort of been the model, but I'm not sure it's the best. I think it needs to be more streamlined, because sometimes I forget. So
yeah, but I mean, I think you're onto the right thing there, which is to try and build it into a part of your existing process, right? Like we were talking about earlier, building habits is hard, and so if there's a way to tack this feedback request into an existing part of the process, then it's going to take less thinking and remembering on your part to do it if it's there. So
right.
That sounds like a good place to be doing it. Okay. And then, I guess the last question was around, you know, everybody's got a reason why they got into law in the first place. And I was wondering how providing unbundled services aligns with that original reason that you decided to get into law.
Okay. Yeah. So the alignment is, I feel I've always wanted to I've always been like an advocate for the everyday person, and unbundled legal services is everyday law. And so it allows you to provide, like, be in a service providing profession, which is what law is. But it also, I don't know, it feels intrinsically really good to be able to help people access law, because I remember reading that every what was it, the Everyday Legal Problems report that was like issued in 2018. And I think the
Right.
CBA did one right post-pandemic, where the stats were that, what is it, like 48% of Canadians are going to have some kind of legal problem at some point in their life. And that's like a really high number of people.
Yeah.
And so being somebody who can provide access to those services, because we saw through the pandemic how resources, especially in the area of family law and especially in the area of estates, people just don't know where to find things. Like there's just too much out there, even on the internet, for people to understand. And also there's the assumption that everyone has the access to the internet. But for me, that was sort of like where the alignment with Unbundled sort of came in. And also, I sort of look at law now from a very different lens. Like it's, for me, I kind of look at myself as, it's looking at law as like kind of the Uber model, in the sense that I'm just an independent contractor that's working for these clients on these like discrete tasks, and they're doing whatever they're doing. And so it eliminates a lot of the people management for me, because I don't have to hire a bunch of staff now. And then also it just helps to create it's almost like a more safer container for the client and the lawyer, where that there's like an end date or an end task, like one specific task or whatever you're doing for that client. And it's not going to be like a long drawn out situation, and also eliminates the sort of fear around fees and, hourly billing and that sort of thing, because most of the work that I do around that stuff is flat fees anyway. So
I see. Interesting.
Yeah,
billing models, that's a whole other thing. So yeah, that sort of project-based finite end to the engagement.
And so appealing. I guess the going back to the question, I sort of deviated from it, but like the alignment is just that, I feel like I'm still doing what I intended to do when I started law, which was just to help people. Helping people. Yeah, that's it, right? I mean, that's what it sounds like. Is I think a lot of people get into law to do that. They want to help people. And I think occasionally they look back years later and say, am I still helping people the way I wanted to help people when I first started off on this journey? And so I think Unbundled services, like you say, are reaching a bunch of people who really do genuinely need help, and it must feel good to be able to provide that. So yeah, great. Well, that's awesome. I really appreciate you taking some time to chat and answer some questions on that. So thank you very much. Of course. Thanks so much for your time, Matt. Yeah.